Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Psychology of Spirituality. I'm very happy to have our guest on today's episode, Brother Isa, Imam Isa. For those of you who don't know, Imam would be the equivalent of a priest.
Similar.
Yeah. He is one of the directors of IslaminSpanish, which is the first masjid in America that broadcasts entirely in Spanish and has their services in Spanish. So we really wanted to speak a little bit about Brother Isa's experience, his spiritual journey, how the Latin community has been responding to Islam in Houston, and with that we can start. So,
sure.
How did this community come to being? How did this masjid come to being, and what's your role here?
So again, my name is Isa Parada. Originally, my parents are from El Salvador in Central America. As we were talking, we're all from New York. I was born in Manhattan on Long Island. Mm-hmm. But my father moved down here in my middle school years because he felt that it was a safer environment, which it wasn't really necessarily the case in the 90s in Houston. But in 1996, I became Muslim. And my birth name was Christian. So choosing the name Isa was easy because Isa means Jesus. So following the way of Christ, right? That was just my journey. But I will get into that in a minute. But about the organization, IslaminSpanish is an organization started originally being an organization focused on educating Latinos about Islam in the Spanish language through multimedia, either through CDs, DVDs, local TV shows. That was the focus when it was originally started by a brother named Jaime Mujahid Fletcher, who's originally from Colombia, but grew up here in Houston. And so when I became Muslim in 1996, there was very little information about Islam except a few books. And it was the same thing when he became Muslim in 2001. And when his father was receiving the message of Islam, he was like, okay, it seems interesting, but only have a few books. Why is there so little about Islam if it's the truth? If you're claiming to be the truth, well, why don't we have much information about it in Spanish? If you say it's universal. So he told his son, do something about it. And so his son, studying multimedia, he made a project starting off with a CD. Basically was an audio book. It was called The Religion of Truth. They translated it into Spanish. And then his father, who became Muslim a few months after him, read the book and then gave it to their aunt, one of his aunts, and to listen to. He said, look, I just want you to listen to my project. He didn't say this is about religion. And because she was very religious, if she knew it was about Islam, she probably wouldn't have listened to it. But she listened to it, and at that time, she was going through chemo, if I'm not mistaken. And long story short, she listened to it, and after listening to the CD, she became Muslim as well. And then she passed away a few days later. What was amazing about that is that he started to make more copies of the CD, and it started to spread throughout Houston. Then from Houston to Dallas. And then it went throughout Latin America. And a lot more people were asking, do you have more information outside of this CD? So then he started to get other books that had been translated by an imam from Argentina, who studied in University called in Mecca. He wrote he translated a lot of books from Arabic to Spanish. So what they started doing with his father's voice, because he has a very deep voice, very nice voice, they just started making audiobooks, and a bunch of CDs that are on our right-hand side over here. There's a lot of the CDs that they have, that they've done, multiple, over 500 CDs. The Quran was translated all into Spanish. They read read out the whole Quran in the Spanish language. So from about 2003 to about 2008, that was the focus, was just giving out this information. And it went out through all Latin America. I mean, places like Cuba as well. Some doctors, medical students, who were about to study medicine in Cuba, had started already learning Spanish. And these were students from Pakistan. They requested our CDs, and we sent a bunch of them, boxes of them to Cuba, and they started passing out the CDs in Cuba.
This type of global project was new at the time.
It was nothing was ever done like this before.
In Spanish at all.
Right, nothing. So the mission was to be the leading, organization in educating Latinos, and from the multimedia realm. And we believe we achieved that as an organization, because there's no one else doing it like that in the world. And we get, the Latinos all over the world as well. So what started happening is that people were traveling and they were like settling in Middle East for work, or Europe. Of course, Spain is there. And they just started asking. CDs were being spread out all over, and DVDs as well. And our local, TV show as well was, over 250 shows were already recorded. So they started spreading out bit by bit through YouTube when YouTube started first coming out. So what started to happen locally, though, was just a bunch of more people, Latinos, becoming Muslim. So what happened was that we started to recognize that in Houston, at least, a lot of the mosques were open to allowing us to do programs there.
Yeah.
But what started to become a challenge to do a weekly program in some of these Islamic centers was that if there was another program that had to, it was happening on, usually we do our programs on Sundays, they wouldn't give us a day, a day in advance notice, not even the morning. It was, we get there with non-Muslims in the mosque, and it's like, no, you can't do it.
Wow.
And we're looking like, but these are your guests. They're like, well, we got something else. We're like, okay, can we go somewhere else? No. So it started to happen a little bit more, it started to increase, like just kind of like, not even announcing the classes in certain centers. And we were there to serve the Islamic Center, right? The Muslim community in general.
And the message of Islam.
Yeah, it was just like, no one else is doing it, and you're kind of like putting it to the side. Fine, okay. Let's try, let's start to think about what are the things that we can start to do. So slowly but surely, we started thinking of the concept of opening up a center, and we sat down. We usually have quarterly potlucks with the community, and we sat with the community and we asked them, "What do you guys think about opening up our own center?" And we had tried that before, and a lot of people felt that we might it might look like we're trying to separate from the Muslim community. Okay. So we're like, okay, the people may not be ready for the concept. We tried it about a year and a half later, and I think they started to get the point of the importance of having our own place. Yeah. So in summer of 2015, 3 years ago, we started to look around, and we grew up in this neighborhood here in Alief. This is Alief, Texas, they call it. It's a district of Houston, and the owners of this lot are the people who own the lot is actually a school, Islamic school, and they know us. They know the work that we did, and they said, "Look, we have a storage area. Y'all can do something with it. Go ahead." So and there's the Chase Bank used to be in front of the front part of the building, and the back end was the storage area, and yeah, we started looking at it, and we walked through it, and we're like, I think we could do something with it. Right? All of us agreed.
It's beautiful.
And from there, we started building the concept, and then in January of 2016, January 30th, we opened up the center. And the reason why we did it was, first and foremost, we wanted a place where we can allow our non-Muslim family feel welcomed and comfortable. Okay. So we felt that if we can make our parents and family feel welcomed, we can, everything, we know the rank of family, that we know the rank of our parents. Everybody else, right, hopefully will feel that love as well. Yeah. And so, interestingly enough, you look at this mural here that's behind us, it was done by a Jehovah's Witness, a young guy from Dallas. How that came about was that he worked at a restaurant right down the street from one of the Islamic centers in Dallas, at a Moroccan restaurant. And one day, about 3 years ago, he saw people protesting outside the Islamic Center with guns. It was happening in Dallas. And he was shocked. Like, he's originally from Mexico, he's coming to America trying to better his life. And he's seeing people hating on Muslims with guns. He just didn't understand the concept, what was going on. So he was working with another Mexican convert, and he said, "Listen, I want to do something from the Muslim community." He said, "I don't know if I can. I'm a Jehovah's Witness. I don't know if that's going to offend anybody." So our representative in Dallas was like, "Nah, man. Right now we're about to open up a center. We still need to clean it up. You want to come down and help, fix it up a bit during the weekend." He said, "Let me do you something better." He said, "I'm an artist. Let me do a mural for you guys." So he came over here. We tried to get him a hotel. He refused. He slept on the floor over here. And for 3 nights, he spray painted this whole thing.
Wow.
And it was all based off of Andalusian art from, Andalusia, Spain, right?
Spain.
And he wrote his name out, Brandon. And on the grand opening, he was standing right there while people were coming in, telling them. So the first thing that people would see after we gave a talk outside was a non-Muslim talking about why he did it. So we started to explain to the people, this is not just about, Latinos or just about Muslims. It's a place where we want everyone to feel, comfortable.
It's a community center.
It's a community center. Yeah, I mean, it's based off Islam. We understand that, but we want people to just feel comfortable and be who they are. So he felt comfortable enough, as a Jehovah's Witness, to do this. He's an artist. He did what he did, and it was beautiful. And we have a center also in Dallas. It's an outreach center, and he did the mural there as well. So we automatically set the tone.
Yeah.
Right. This is about a place where people can come and feel comfortable and learn something about Islam, of course. And we speak Spanish, so we're going to take advantage of that. But we also speak English as well. So yeah, that's how. And it's been we've been here since that time, January of 2016.
Maybe take some spirituality back with them when they leave. That's really important.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, the part of them feeling, we know where people go and they're seeking help, right? Spiritual help. And they're trying to get spiritually healthy. And there are times and different, I don't want to just say only mosques, but there are some places of worship where the people who are hosting or the people who are in charge may not be used to having, because we're in America, we kind of, you have all kinds of people coming in.
Yeah.
And there are some places where you may come in and it's meant to be a place of spiritual healing, but they might look at you strange because you're not from their congregation or you're not from their race. And it happens throughout different groups. So one thing that we didn't want to do was have it here. We were like, yes, it's for Latinos in the sense of being educated about Islam in the Spanish language, but my wife is African American, right? The other, teacher, educator, Imam here, his wife is also African American. So there's a lot of people who are part of the community whose spouses are not Latino. So we didn't want to make them feel left out. Obviously, it's my wife. I don't want to feel left out either, right? So we wanted to make it inclusive. And so, that's why we believe a lot of people started to come through to the center that were not Latino. I mean, Latinos coming here, they're just shocked that there's something that they can say that Muslims are doing for the Latino community to educate.
Because the interplay between Islam and Spanish isn't new. We've had Islam in the Iberian Peninsula for like 1,000 years.
Right.
So from you being in the forefront of this movement in the Latino community, what have you seen has been the driving force between Latinos accepting this message of Islam and maybe even just accepting some spiritual truth into their life?
Well, I believe that when you're only shown one way and it's dictated to you that this is the only way to worship God, and there is in your own background, right, from culture, from language, there's something else that people were trying to hide for whatever reason, historically speaking. When Latinos start to find out that there's there's thousands of words that from the Arabic language to Spanish, when they start to find out certain phrases that are connected to like ojalá, inshallah, right? They start to find out this. They're like, wait a minute, this is a bit that we either were never taught this or it was brushed aside. So then they're like, oh, Muslims believe that Jesus and Mary and Moses and Abraham. Wait a minute, what is this? We thought this was some, like Indian religion or Middle Eastern religion, mystical. We were like, it's not from us. It's their religion, right? It's their culture. So when they start to find out, like, wow, there's a lot of the beliefs that we start to read about in Islam. The spiritual connection that I can have with God alone without asking anyone else. We've always believed that, but we just didn't know where to practice it. So of course they were only given, a certain, church, the Catholic Church, or even now a lot of more Protestant churches have opened up in Latin America, or it's spreading. So they only have very few options, but it was based off of Christianity. So for them to hear about Islam and another method of worshiping God, it was amazing to them. So at the very least, we started to see that people were more interested in at least learning. And then, of course, from those people who learn, They're like, well, this is what I've always wanted. This is how I always felt that was the proper way of worshiping God. So we're starting to see a lot more people learning about Islam because there's a lot more information, right? So with this information, it's like, wow, we've always believed this way, but we just never knew where to practice it. So now even in Latin, excuse me, in Latin America, you know, Islam is starting to spread a lot more. A lot more Islamic centers are opening up. There are a lot more people, indigenous, who are actually learning and coming back to their people. So when you have that opportunity to touch, and it's not only preaching, you know, we learn that, you know, there's one thing to go out and preach it, which is fine. You want to tell the people about it, educate, but also having people being a part of this community here and being able to go out and give back. So we have a program that came out of here called Outreach in the Barrio. Barrio in Spanish means neighborhood. And there was one specific sister who, she became Muslim in the southwest area of Houston, in a pretty rough area. And long story short, you know, she became Muslim, you know, in the early 2000s, but she struggled to find a community because she also had a son with special needs. And as he was growing up, there are times where our Muslim community doesn't do well with a young man being on the side on the women's side. So they're like, why is this 13-year-old boy here? But he has special needs. He's like the mind of a 5-year-old. Yeah. So people they weren't tolerant. Yeah. You know, let's even respectful, beyond tolerant, right? So she came, you know, she knew us, but she was kind of on the outskirts of the community. She kind of stayed away. When she heard the center open, she came back. And what she started to see was, you know, people embracing her son. You know, no one looked at her son like, oh, why are you doing something different? Or, you know, he would like kind of sometimes will hug you out of nowhere, and you're just like, hey, Omar, his name's Omar, right? So making her feel welcomed, making the boy feel welcomed as well. She was like, man, I want to give back to the community. So she started this organization called, you know, a project called Outreach in the Barrio, and going out and feeding homeless people, going back to her neighborhood as well, and, you know, helping people out with clothes or furniture. And they're seeing this woman wearing hijab, right, the head covering. And they're like, oh, what part of the Arab world are you from? She's like, no, my parents are from, you know, Mexico, and I'm from Houston, you know, right here in the neighborhood. They're like, how's that? Like, you know, they're trying to figure it out. And she's, you know, she'll mention some things about Islam, and they're like, you know, can you give us information? So they didn't start seeing her as, you know, a Muslim woman trying to preach to them. She just wanted to help. And now this project has opened up and spread out so much, and it's growing to the point where they hosted a whole soup kitchen last Sunday. They fed over 300, you know, homeless people. Cut their hair. They had stylists out there. So there was a lot of good that came out of it, and it was a way of showing, you know, from spirituality. It's not just something that is just within. It's in a temple or in a place of worship. It's the opportunity to put that belief and spirituality into action, right? Assisting people, because that is the way you appreciate, you know, God's gifts to you, right? So to see that and being a part of that is a, you know, it's a wonderful experience, because there was so much negativity in our lives before Islam. That was our own, and it's nothing to do with my mom raising me as a Christian, because I refused to practice the spirituality that she taught me and what I saw from her, right? The morals and values that my parents taught me. I refused to do that at a young age, right? And I just felt, after coming back and realizing my ways weren't, of course, pleasing to God nor pleasing to humanity, you know, I realized that I needed to improve myself, and my journey led me to Islam from that way of, okay, my mom always told me, follow Jesus, okay? So I followed Jesus, read into his life, and then I saw, wow, you know, there's a connection with Islam here, and then I felt that was a closer, you know, I would get closer to God by practicing Islam. So from that whole process of going through that with myself, you know, and being able to now apply that and educating people about Islam has been a wonderful experience, you know, the past few, 20 years since I've been Muslim.
I think you touched upon a really important thing, and I think that's a big misconception people have about Islam, is that it spread through the sword, and it spread through, these types of barbaric type of wars that happen. And it was like, no, community effort, yes, and the Prophet being involved in the Arabian community and yes, showing that he's a man of peace and a man of truth before any sort of message was even given was the primary. And I think what you guys are doing here, and firstly establishing community roots and helping the community, and really, helping them feel comfortable coming in here, and then also giving them a platform and some material that they can engage in their native language is so important. And the last thing that I would love to hear from you is what spirituality means to you and how your spiritual journey has led you to that definition.
That's a good question. For me, spirituality means the ability to appreciate God's gifts that He has blessed me with since the day that I was born. My mom, my sister always is hard on me because she says that you almost killed Mom when you were giving birth, when she was giving birth to you. Like Mom almost passed away because I was just she was a small lady and I was a big kid, right, a big baby. So, God blessing me with a mother that I've had to this point, and allowing her to survive that and her raising me, and including with my father as well. So the blessings of God, God giving me two good parents, hardworking parents, who immigrated here, to America to find a better way of life, and the morals and values that they taught me, even though there was a time in my life I didn't appreciate them, I'm able to appreciate them a lot more. And there was always finding a way how to serve, God's community, right? Because God, we believe, God created everyone, no matter. And of course, everyone, and we all come from the same father and mother, meaning Adam and Eve. Yeah. So coming from that environment, and being blessed with, with a good family upbringing, and even through the tough times in my challenges in life, those to me were also blessings as well. Being able, to go through that struggle in order for me to appreciate more of the blessings that I've had. So my point is in spirituality is, how is it that I can find different ways to serve God, right? And part of it is my personal time with Him. So I would look at it for an example. Aspect of spirituality is, for example, when the Prophet, peace be upon him, came to the city of Medina. Yeah. The first message that he told the whole community, right? Not only they migrated right from Mecca to Medina, so Medina wasn't a Muslim, state or country or city. It was Jewish community. Yeah. It was Arab non-Muslim community. It was the Muslims, right, and a few Christians. So it was a mixed community, right? And he told them something beautiful. He said, he goes, people, right? So here's the message for everyone. Spread peace amongst yourselves, right? And feed the poor. And also be good to your parents. And then pray at night when people are sleeping, and you will enter paradise with ease. Mm. So starting from the backside of it, right, our whole journey through this is, our goal is to get to paradise. That's the number one thing we believe in. And the year after, we believe that we're going to, there's a place called paradise, right? And that's where we want to go. Right, yeah. So one of the ways that I am able to get to that place is by having a personal connection with God at night or throughout the day. I mean, night is an example, right, of sacrifice, right? Yeah. While everyone is sleeping, you get up to pray. But in general, that connection with God, to go out there and pray to Him and thank Him for what He's given me, ask for forgiveness for my errors that I've made, and just seeking to improve. So that's part of my spiritual, journey. But also, as I was mentioning, being obedient to my parents. There are times where obedience, right, even the word, like respectful, honoring, people have different ways of defining that differently. But the point is that I'm able to honor and respect my parents. And my parents are not even Muslim, right? And it doesn't mean that because they're not Muslim, I'm not going to respect them, right? God even tells us in the Quran that even if they're not Muslim, you respect and honor your parents. The only time you don't respect their wishes per se, if they're asking you to disobey God, right? In which even my mom always taught me that, even as a Christian woman, she's like, you always put God first, before me, before your dad, before anyone. God comes first. So that was something that was already implemented, and instilled in me. So just honoring my parents. And then as I was mentioning the work that, Outreach in the Body was doing, to go out and feed the needy or just assist the people in need. reflecting back, when we're talking about New York, I remember a lot of times, you know, as a youth, you know, how you would disrespect a homeless person, you know, make fun of them, ridicule them, you know, like, I'm talking about from the streets, right? That was just ignorance, right? And to do things to people, and now you see nowadays, of course, the way that people speak about impoverished people, that, you know, they're not trying hard enough, they're lazy, this and that. That wasn't the spirit of Islam. So when you're able to assist people who are in need or assistance, or just may need, you know, a word of encouragement, right? That because you never know who that person is, in what difference that they can make in people's lives. So you're able to, you know, connect with people out there who are in need or need some assistance or mentorship or what have you, to be part of that also, you know, it's part of that spiritual journey to get closer to God. And, you know, and look what he said, spread peace, right? The actual words, afshu salam, right? When we say salam alaikum. But it's not just saying salam alaikum like peace be upon you. It's the ability to know that even if you are negative towards me, if you say that, you know, you call me, you insult me because I'm Latino or because I'm Muslim or whatever the reason is, you're not going to see that anger or frustration coming back to you. There's something that you're dealing with spiritually, that you're so angry and frustrated or insecure or whatever the word is, right? I don't have to stoop to your level. I'm there to even my fellow man who's struggling, to lift them up, right? So that's the way of spreading that peace, right? Or just, you know, your neighborhood, you know, you go to your neighborhood store and just how you doing to a person, you know, they're serving people, right? They're, you know, cashier, right? No one really says hello to them usually. It's like, she said, hello, yeah, just serve me, you know, check me out and that's it, right? So smile, how you doing, Mike, how you doing, Sandy? You know, like, and sometimes you see that, like, why is this person being so nice to me? Because it's shocking, right? When you're able to, you know, just say some good words to people, you want to spread that love and peace around the environment, right? And when people say, well, Muslims, the way that we're, you know, portrayed, there are some angry Muslims out there. There are some frustrated Muslims out there. There are some ignorant Muslims out there like anybody else, right? And it's unfortunate, but that doesn't represent Islam, right? That doesn't represent the message of Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon all of them. They represented something. We're trying to reach that level. And of course, we're human beings. We're going to fall short, right? But God is there to help, continuously supporting us, assisting us, and teaching us, right? And so to me, that statement of the Prophet, you know, is for me what defines spirituality in my life, through Islam.
I think, you know, we look at spirituality as being like this abstract type of ideal that we can never reach, but it's like even just implementing small kindness throughout your day, that's taking you closer to spirituality, and sometimes even praying for 10 hours would. Just showing kindness, smiling at a cashier, waving to someone even when you're frustrated, you know. And that's something that's shown in the psychological literature too. People who have spirituality usually have better positive emotions. They usually have better self-regulation. All of these different things that correlate with better mental health. So it's like, you know, spirituality is very important, but also like what Brother Isa talked about, the implementation of the spirituality in practices, in engaging with community, in helping people out. All of these different things, you know, spirituality also it's a belief system, but it's also enacting it into our environment also. And
one quick thing also people underestimate is that because we're human beings and we make errors, that the person making the error, right, which all of us do, is how quickly can we, you know, snap out of it or come back or reflect upon that error. That's also part of spirituality, because sometimes we try to get to this perfect place that we may never ever get to, right? Very few people get to a level where every move they make is all about God, right? So when you make that mistake, that also there's a spiritual journey and process through that as well. It's like, you know, for example, feeling resentment towards a person, even deeper than that, right? To what degree am I going to let this eat me up inside, right? Even if they've done me wrong, even if that person did me wrong or whatever, you know, it could be a family member or a friend. To what degree am I going to hold that in, right? And if I do lash out on that person, do I quickly snap out of it and say, that's not really what God wants from me, right? So what can I do to let that go, right? Just let things go. Letting that resentment go, letting that hatred go, being able to just be real with oneself and say, I'm going to make mistakes, but coming back up, you know, coming back to constantly trying to improve. That's also that spiritual realm that many times people don't look at, because they always want to look at perfection. Perfection, which is great, right? We always want to shoot for the best.
Thank you so much, Imam, Brother Isa, Brother Jesus, I can even say it right. That's
close. Well, my mom was saying, it's, Christian. If you're going to call me anything other than Isa, that's the name that was good. It won't offend. You know what I mean?
So I want to thank Brother Isa for coming on today's episode. I'm really, really happy to be here at the center. This is a beautiful center. I guess we're going to do a tour after this, so
yes.
I'm excited to look at some stuff. If people wanted to come to this center, is there a website that they can
go to? So they can go to IslaminSpanish.org. Of course, they can look us up on Facebook as well. And I'm sure, Instagram and Snapchat and YouTube.
With like all of this content that we have on this table over here, so we have
yes.
a lot of in Spanish, all these different
yes,
cities. Would that be this all
this is all available online on IslaminSpanish.org.
We'll put the link
yes.
magically up here right here. Yeah. Thank you, Brother Isa. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you.
Appreciate it.
Peace be upon all of you too.